Greetings. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I'm sure you're going to be challenged and inspired, and you're in for a real treat. I asked you to give our speaker a break. He has been working nonstop since yesterday morning. We have rarely given him a break. He's about dead, but I think you can make it one more time, huh? One more time. He's got it. All right. Dr. Rupert Nacoste is Alumni Distinguished Professor of Psychology at North Carolina State University. I'm not going to give a long introduction because you're going to get to know him very well in a very short time. So, Dr. Nacoste.
That's why on that night in Memphis, Tennessee, it was no accident that he said, "We've got some difficult days ahead." But what? What was he thinking of? What was he alerting us to? What did he know? It was clear he knew somehow. He already knew, and what I believe Dr. King knew was that change is difficult. And I believe he knew too. The most difficult change of all still lay before America, changing the way we interact with each other face to face, black to white, Protestant to Catholic to Jew, homosexual to heterosexual. Changing our interpersonal worlds. Change. That's why he said, we've got some difficult days ahead. And now we live in those difficult days all over America. Race tensions, gender identity tensions, sex of person tensions, religion tensions, cities, colleges and universities. We live in some difficult days, as predicted by Dr. King in 1968. We live in the time of his prophecy. We've got some difficult days ahead, and there are no innocent. There are no innocent. There are no innocent in this room. There are no innocent young people, high schoolers, decide on the day that they're spelling out their school name with T-shirts. Yeah, there you go. Just hit you, didn't it? Yes, they decide to pull themselves aside to spell out the word nigger. It's just a joke, right? It's just a joke. Oh. Another high school, North Carolina, Wakefield High, a lynching of a teddy bear in front of the high school to protest a black principal. There we go. We've got some difficult days ahead, but it's just a joke, right? There are no innocent. What's going on, folks? What is going on? Been on the faculty at North Carolina State University 28 years. Teach big classes. I feel really, it's kind of small in here right now. I teach 200 students at a time in an auditorium. Teach and talk to a lot of students, young people learning to navigate life. Learning to navigate life. Yeah. Right. Trying to learn, and some of those young people call that adulting. Adulting. I started hearing this. Adulting. She's got this big smile on her face because she knows exactly what I'm talking about. She's like, oh yeah, we say that. Adulting. It's hard to adult. I finally got a glimpse of the depth of that concern when I found this poster. The horrifying moment when you're looking for an adult, but you realize you are an adult. So you look around for an older adult, an adultly adult, someone better at adulting than you. Okay. All right. Okay, so young people trying to learn to navigate life, and that should tell us that what we're talking about is a set of people who need some guidance. I teach lots of students, a mix of students, so I know the struggle. They talk to me about the struggle. I teach a lot of students, a mix of students, always, every semester. Let me back that up. What did you say? When I came to NC State University, 25% of the campus was female. Now it's 50%. Engineers, physicists, mathematicians. Yeah. Social change, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, young black male is in my office. I talk to a lot of students, have appointments. Yeah. This young black male is there to talk to me about something, but he starts talking in the language of racial oppression, being racially oppressed at North Carolina State University. I was like, I'm sorry, what? I said, you got admitted, right? Yes. You go to class and you get taught, right? Yes. You use all the resources here, nobody stops you, right? Yes. I said, I grew up in the Jim Crow South. I did not, could not go to school with white kids of my own age because it was against the law. That is racial oppression. You know what he said to me? He said, well, Dr. Nacoste, when we hear about that, it just sounds like a big joke. A 19-ish-year-old young black man said that to a 65-year-old black man who grew up in the Jim Crow South. A big joke. Really. A big joke. Separate everything. And I know young people have trouble conceptualizing this because you've never seen it. You've never seen it. So they have trouble. I talk to my students all the time about this. When I start talking this way, their eyes just kind of like, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is a reality. Separate everything by law. A big joke. A big joke. Who's letting the dog loose? The law is on peaceful protesters. A big joke? But that's how we get to this, where too many Americans believe it's okay to use racial jokes, to tell racial jokes, to use racial slurs, to do all that in conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. But it's not just race anymore. Same with mental health conditions. Young people call each other retards. Really? It's just a joke. Jokes about women, gender. Well, the funny thing is that we social psychologists like me, we study this stuff because it's about social interaction. Jokes are in social interaction strategy. So we study them. Jokes about women, we've studied the effects of jokes about women in organizations. If an organization allows for this joking about women, it increases the likelihood of discrimination against women in that organization. So no, it's not just a joke. So we're not post-racial, we're not even post-gender. People casually joke and poke about other folk. One of my students in my Interdependence and Race course wrote this. Words like nigger, bitch, slut, retarded are words generally young people throw around as if they are nothing. Oh, my, my, my. That's from the horse's mouth. How have we gotten so confused? How have we gotten so confused? about how to have productive interactions with our fellow Americans. How have we gotten here? How do we get from the civil rights movement and revolution to here? And what now? What do we do now? Because we're here. Look, things have changed fast. Social change has been fast and dramatic in this country. I grew up in the Jim Crow South. When you say Jim Crow South to young people, they think that's ancient history. I have to remind them, I'm sorry, still here. Still walking around, breathing, living. No, it ain't ancient history. So the changes have been fast and dramatic. Even sports writers talk about this. In Raleigh, the News and Observer, one of the sports writers was talking about the Super Bowl buzz in 2016 for the Carolina Panthers. Super Bowl buzz in the Triangle feels blasé, he wrote. Ooh, blasé. Then he wrote this. And maybe there's no way to compare the Triangle to what it was then either. Most of downtown Raleigh was still quiet at night in 2004, like that's a million years ago. Now downtown Raleigh and downtown Durham are both day and night destinations while migrants from elsewhere have continued to surge into the area, bringing with them existing allegiances to NFL and other pro teams elsewhere. There's been a general cultural shift with a hipper, funkier vibe led by a new generation that has broader interests. Wow, that's in one town. And he's talking about from 2004. I was born in 1951. Social change has been fast, and there's reason for that. There's a funny thing about America. It just will not sit still, will it? No, it won't. Social change. Since I'm in a room with mostly more mature people, I can say that some of you will have remembered the time when we had 3 major networks on television with 3 news anchors, all of whom were male. Yes, is it like that now? Ooh, holy moly, holy moly. In our lifetimes, people started worrying about the 24-hour news cycle when CNN started to come around, and then Fox News picked it up, MSNBC, HLN, women anchors, oh God. But now people are screaming about the 24-minute news cycle. Holy moly, breaking news. Isn't it interesting that everything is breaking news? They start the news with breaking news to tell you that we do breaking news, but we don't have any right now. And then when they do have something that's breaking news, they say it's urgent breaking news. Urgent breaking. And now we have the other part of the dynamic that's what? It's all fake news. America won't sit still. It just keeps changing. Just keeps changing. Marriage equality just keeps changing. Things have changed fast. I grew up in the Jim Crow South. Race riots in American cities. Race riots in the American military. I served in the United States Navy in 1972 to 1976. Race riots aboard ships carrying weapons of mass destruction. I served on board the USS Intrepid, an aircraft carrier carrying 5,000 men, January 1973. We had a race riot that lasted 3 days at sea. There you go. The book is Black Sailor, White Navy if you want the historical documents. Yeah, that's finally been documented. Black Sailor, White Navy. Yes, race riots aboard ships carrying weapons of mass destruction during my time. I was there. So we've gone through a lot of stuff. Jim Crow legal segregation, race riots in American cities, race riots in the American military. Oh, by the way, it wasn't just one race riots in the Navy. It was 350 racial incidences between 1970 and 1975, all documented, because the Navy investigated every one of them. 350. Why? Language. Racial slurs, as the Navy was desegregating finally, because it took the Navy a long, long time. But I served, my older brother served, my little brother served. We've been through all that, desegregation of schools, especially in the Deep South. We're still struggling with that. But we've gone through changes. To what? To that event. I grew up in the Jim Crow South where no one would have even conceived of this idea. that a president would look like this. That's changed very fast, isn't it? I'm still here. It's very fast. But that does not mean it's been very smooth. I mean, when this guy, people are like, oh my God! Oh my God! And those are the people who voted for him. Like, oh my God! People were trying to figure it out. Okay, we got a black president. And then somebody said, well, black? He's biracial, raised by his white mother and white grandparents. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, Christian, Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, well, okay, we don't know. Exactly. For 8 years, people were like, people who voted for him were like that. So change has been very fast and dramatic. But without understanding the context of all that change, young people struggle and end up thinking, it was just a big joke. Young people tell me in my interdependence and race course about what they don't know about the history of race in America. And they don't know squat. But if you don't know, you don't know how to conceptualize. You don't know what's out of place. And then some people around them don't want to admit it, which is why they don't know. Schools are doing an awful job. Awful. And so we have many Americans who can't understand how things have really changed in America. And without that context, you get real struggle and resistance. And the young people especially don't know about the real starting point. So they can't know how things have really changed. They can't know. So I have them read Blood Done Sign My Name in one of my classes. Blood Done Sign My Name. It's a historical memoir. Tim Tyson tells the story of himself as a 10-year-old white boy in Oxford, North Carolina, days after a black man was shot and killed in public, in the streets of Oxford, North Carolina. And the story of how none of them were ever punished. It was done in public. He tells that story as a Ph.D. professor of African American history. He's a white man. This really tears my students up. They're like, oh, wait. They start reading the book and then they're writing in their reflections. They say, wait. This is a white guy. Well, yeah, white people had experiences doing Jim Crow too. See the mythology? See how we've shaded things? People don't think about what were white people doing. Did every white person believe that this is the way things should go? No! I have to beat people over the head about that. One of the reasons I do have to beat people over the head about that because my father was an active voting rights activist. Who did he work with? White people, Jewish people. Yes, there were allies. There were coalitions. Young people don't know that. They're like, oh, wow, a white guy writes about this? I'm like, oh, okay. Yes. And then they read the real history because he does this combination of his own personal history through these times with the actual history, documented history, changes in the laws and what was going on. He interviews people from Oxford. It's a powerful book. I have my students read it in sections, 3 sections, and they write a reflection after each section. And their reflections are heart-wrenching. One student wrote, a white female, reading this book, I realized the lack of knowledge and understanding I have about the realities of slavery in the Jim Crow South. I think this is partially due to the failure of the school system to teach the truth of the history. My students become angry. Angry. Oh, they're not angry at me. They thank me. They're angry at you. Why did no one tell me? Why did my parents not tell me? Why did my grandparents not tell me? Say, I can't answer that question. You need to ask them. And some of them do. But that's the situation for young people now. They don't know. And yet older people want to blame them when they do something goofy. You didn't teach them. They think it's a joke. That's never on the child. That is never on the child. Because they're children. They need guidance. We leave them without that guidance, so now it's all just a big joke. They don't know how things have really changed, and so they make jokes about the President of the United States, racial jokes. Just a big joke, right? Americans are struggling, folks. There has been fast and dramatic social change, and we have not helped young people understand that fast and dramatic social change. 7 years ago, it says 6 and 7. Whew, wow, got to edit better. 7 years ago now, I did a program for a group that was an organization that was then called Encore. It's now called Usher. I did a 6-week course for them, Living on the New Racial Frontier, talking about intergroup anxiety. And during one of the discussions, one of the white men in the group put up his hand and said, "It just seems like there's so many more outgroups." Once he understood the intergroup anxiety idea. Anxiety about interacting with someone you perceive to be in an outgroup. He said, "There just seems to be so many more outgroups." And I went, yeah, there are. There's a reason for that. Remember Jim Crow legal segregation? We didn't know about each other. And then other things start changing. Multiracial. U.S. becomes more diverse. Minorities could make up the new American majority by mid-century. Shift in the demographic. Real shift. Real shift. Multiracial people are the fastest growing group in the growing diversity. Yes, and our former president, of course, is multiracial. Okay, so things are actually changing. Actually. It's not psychological. It's not. It's social. Minorities now surpass whites in U.S. births. It's social. And it's unstoppable. Yes. So there are, in fact, more outgroups if that's how you approach it. And that rise in diversity is making Americans very, very nervous by the data. By the data. Very anxious Americans say they are about this growing diversity. But don't panic. Look, all we have to understand is this. Social change is always happening in America, always. In this case, what it means is more face-to-face interaction with people who do not look like, sound like, believe like you. It means that for everybody. For everybody. For everybody. So, I have to say to young people, you know that means you can't just say anything. You can say what you want in your house. But then you leave the house. Okay? You can't just say anything. Actually, I have to teach that. Because everybody's hearing what everybody's saying now. We used to be segregated from each other. You know that this standing here right now would not have been possible by the law. I could never have taught at North Carolina State University by the law. Could not have been a student at North Carolina State University by the law. Things have changed. So now we're all in the same room. Everybody's hearing what everybody's saying. Oh, well, that's a different social context, isn't it? We are now living in a world of neodiversity. Neodiversity. We've gone from being racially segregated, living separate, segregated lives, to now being all in desegregated spaces. And desegregated along all kinds of dimensions. We're struggling with who are the we and who are among the they. Racial segregation, the laws, immoral and wrong. But did something very important. It made it clear who was a we and who was a they, because the we's could go here and the they's couldn't. Separate everything. But now, you can't just look at somebody and decide they shouldn't be here. If you got those kind of ideas running around in your head, you're in deep trouble. Come to my campus and not expect this to be the professor. You're in deep trouble, because I am the professor, and the room is mine. And I tell my students, you don't like that? Call the chancellor. He knows my name. And he will say, that's Dr. Nacoste's classroom. But we struggle now because of these changes. And what are the categories we're struggling with learning how to interact with? Woo-hoo! What aren't the categories? There we go. Gender identity, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, bodily condition, religion, sexual orientation. We live in a world of neodiversity. Not diversity, not racial relations, not diversity. Neodiversity. This is new. This 21st century time and circumstance where all of us have encounters and interactions with other Americans who are not like us on any number of dimensions. On any number of dimensions. Any number of dimensions. That's neodiversity. And it can create anxiety. Just that interpersonal situation. What kind of anxiety? Interaction anxiety. How to interact. Should I say something? What should I say? How should I say it? The hell are the rules? Exactly. Imagine being a student coming to any college or university now, wherever you're coming from. The mix of people is unlike anything anybody's ever seen. Even when you don't think it's mixed, it's mixed. Trust me. Because there are all kinds of visible, invisible identities wandering around that you don't know about. People do this really funny thing. They can always, we know. No, you don't know. You know ethnicity? How do you do that? Et toi, c'est bon. Laissez-les bons tendouler. Oh. Yes, I'm a Louisiana black Creole. Et toi, oh yes, c'est bon. It's so good. Laissez-les bons tendouler. Let the good times roll. Can you see my Roman Catholicism? Can you see that? The Mass said in Latin, in nomine Patri, Filii, Spiritus Sanctus. Can you see that? No, you can't. So people sitting around talking about them damn Catholics, and I'm looking at them like, Didn't expect, hello, altar boy? Can you see that? Yes. That's why all this anxiety is rising up. People are making mistakes and then figuring out, okay, wait, I can't do that. And because of that anxiety, people try all kind of foolishness. I don't see color. That's an avoidance strategy, by the way. I don't see color. Really? Oh, God. You don't see this. Really? You don't see this. I ask people, I say, no, you didn't notice. No, look at her eyes gets with. Yeah. Okay. Right. I don't see color. Don't do that. Okay. It's an avoidance strategy. Stereotypes, you know how they are. As soon as you hear any of this, you're talking about interaction anxiety. Trying to find a way to put it in a box. Yeah. Like people tried with President Obama, put it in a box. He's a Muslim. Wasn't born here. He was, I want to see his birth certificate. Really? That's all anxiety responses. All of it. Why are first-time interracial encounters difficult to manage? I asked that question early in my interdependence and race course. How do you think people you know would answer that question? Why are first-time interracial encounters difficult to manage? How do you think people you know would answer that question? And I'm not asking that rhetorically. How do you think people you know would answer that question?
I don't know what to call
I don't know what to call you. I don't know your history. They don't know your history. Anything else? Yeah. That's the one. Afraid to say something that's offensive. I've been teaching this course since 2006. And since 2006, whenever I ask this question, the main thing that comes up is trying not to offend. It's not PC. We'll come to that. Yeah, people use that one too, and we're not going to do it in here. Yes. No. Yeah, no, because it makes you, here's why. Here's the deal. As soon as you try before knowing anything, not to offend, how are you doing that? How do you know anything about this person? What did you just say about history? You don't know each other's history, so how can you not offend? How do you do that? What do you have to draw on to try? Stereotype, which means you're about to put your foot in your mouth. That's exactly what it means. Yes, trying not to offend. People are nervous about talking to someone who doesn't look like, sound like, believe like them. My students at NC State say they are nervous the first time they talk to a new person who does not look like them. Exactly. They say it. Nervous. It's a new experience. Don't want to say the wrong thing, fear of offending the other person. Those are quotes from my students since 2006. Those three are always on the list. Yeah. Being nervous, you see, about not offending, makes people act goofy. Exactly, because you're nervous about something you can't do anything about. So your behavior is all funny. The way you talk is funny. The way you move is funny. People think they can control this nervousness, but it's leaking out of their nonverbal behavior. We call it nonverbal leakage in social psychology. It's just oh. You think you're being cool, and the other person's looking at you like, damn, what are you doing? You've already messed up. Anxiety, not understanding the context. It's just a joke. And people say it's about political correctness. Yeah? No. That's a defense mechanism. To say it's about political correctness means you're trying to ask me to do something that I really shouldn't have to do. You shouldn't have to respect me? Is that what you're saying? I have opinions too. What makes you think yours should override mine? Yeah, you see, that's the problem. The idea that you're white and I'm black and what you say I got to listen to? Oh, no. Oh, hell no. That's not about political correctness. That's about interaction respect. There are no innocent. Look, there's high school students, they had a strategy. They put that thing on Snapchat. Disappears in 24 hours, except that young people in high school don't understand how long 24 hours really is in the digital world. 24 hours is a century online. That thing went viral within 15 minutes. Why do I have it? Why was it all over the news? They did not anticipate that. It'll disappear in 24 hours. Well, poor babies. But it's not just high school students who think it's all just a big joke. College students, it just happened last week, just before I left to come here, UNC Charlotte. Some college student decided to put up a colored sign over the water fountain. Wait a minute. I grew up with that. You think that's a joke? Well, people have already let that person know it wasn't funny. And the outrage is not about political correctness. It's about the fact that none of this is innocent. It is not innocent. Because there are no innocent religious jokes, racial jokes, mental health condition jokes, ethnic jokes. None of that is innocent. Likewise, slurs. Young people use all kinds of words now. They think it's all right to do so, calling people retard. That's a slur against a whole group of people. None of it is innocent. not about political correctness. It's about the fact that too many people don't have a good theory of mind. I have to teach about the theory of mind. Not to you, but to my students I have to teach about the theory of mind. What is the theory of mind? Theory of mind is this very simple idea that other people have thoughts, feelings, and preferences too. That's it. But if you have an immature theory of mind, you're not thinking about that. And my students actually react to that in writing. They say, I never thought about that. What? Yes, other people. And not just other people who look like you, other people, period, have legitimate thoughts, feelings, and preferences too. So that's why it's an interaction. That's why it's relationship development. That's why you just can't say you can't say just anything. The theory of mind problem is that for too many people, there's no consideration that people not like me have these thoughts, feelings, and preferences. Their own thoughts, feelings, and preferences too. And if that's a problem, that's a problem because it sets up bad social interactions. To always default to people like me is why we get so many angry protestations about political correctness. That's where that comes from. Only thinking about people like me. Well, the world is not filled with people like you, turns out. We live in a complex world. The only reason I have to watch my language is all this political correctness stuff. Don't listen to that bullshit, because that's all it is. It's a defense. People want to be able to say what they want when they want. Well, that doesn't happen in the real social world. It really doesn't. So somebody's going to look at you and go and say, what did you just say to me? And they will have every right to do so. Not political correctness, that's the problem. It's the new America in which people who used to be forced to be silent, the Jim Crow South, are now shouting about their experience of injustice through what? All the young people know. The megaphone of social media. You cannot shut people up now. You can't do it. Yes. Former President Obama has a Facebook page. There we go. And we have a president who tweets. But we got other people tweeting with Facebook pages. There you go. You want to talk that way? Okay. I can talk my way. That's the dynamic. So we have to learn some things. And even Miss Manners talks about this. Miss Manners. She has to address the foolish statements people are making to defend what she called nasty behavior. No, really. She got this letter. I read her every now and then. I read a lot of stuff that has anything that has to do with relationships. Miss Manners, sometimes it's not about relationships. It's about other kind of foolishness. But this one was interesting because it was about political correctness. Miss Manners got this letter. Dear Miss Manners, in light of rude comments made by political candidates under the guise of not being politically correct, could you please explain how to be polite without being politically correct? See how this has trapped somebody, twisted them into a knot? Going on. Good question, Miss Manners says. As modern usage of the term politically correct has meant refraining from delivering wholesale insults to groups of people, that would be difficult. The usual defense of those who express nastiness, ooh, Miss Manners, how could you? The usual defense of those who express nastiness is that they're being frank and honest about what they think, as indeed they are, but that does not make their spoken opinions any less nasty. Okay, Miss Manners. So let's clarify some terminology that's really tearing people up. Prejudice versus bigotry versus racism. People have jammed these together, and they're not the same thing. I told you I'm a Louisiana Black Creole. I grew up in the Bayou country, not New Orleans, not even near New Orleans. Bayou country. Yeah, 150 miles. New Orleans is way over there, yonder. So I grew up in the Bayou, and in the Bayou we have a reputation we'll eat just about anything. And one of the things we eat is nutria. You know nutria? Yeah, it's a rat, about yay big. Yeah, cut that up, barbecue it. You got yourself something. People are like, what? She's covering her mouth. Oh, God. You ever had nutria? Yeah. As soon as I said rat, people are like, oh, that's okay. It tastes like armadillo. Anyway. Yeah, we eat that too. Okay, but if you've not had contact with the stimulus in this way, you are prejudging it. Okay, that's a prejudgment. Do it at the group level. The group prejudice. It's a prejudgment of a whole group of people. Why is it a prejudgment? Because you cannot have experiences and interactions with a whole group of people. So as soon as you start talking about they and them, oh, you are prejudging. That's a group prejudice. Now, does the person who holds such a group prejudice have to show it in their behavior in the presence of the stimulus? Nope, they do not. The well-socialized person, all of that. Yeah, they can be fine. But if the prejudice comes out in observable behavior, that's bigotry. Bigotry is the outward behavioral expression of anti-group feelings. How? Avoidance, use of stereotypes, language of slurs, all that's bigotry. Well, wait. Everybody likes to talk about racism. You're a racist. Racist this, racist that, rada, rada, rada. Ha. So let me help you. Racism is never in a person. I say again, racism is never in a person. Racism is institutional, a system of institutional organizational patterns of behavior that authorizes and supports prejudice and bigotry. I grew up in the Jim Crow South. I grew up at a time when I could not and did not go to school with white kids of my own age because it was against the law. That's racism. I mean, you can do it, sexism, heterosexism. North Carolina, as a state, North Carolina put in a law called HB 2 to say that transgender people could only use the bathroom in certain ways at certain, what? That's a system of institutional and organizational patterns that supports what? Other people's concerns about what are those transgender people doing anyway? Yeah. Heterosexism. System of organizational and institutional patterns of behavior, social policies and laws. That's the level of racism, sexism, heterosexism. But people like to call people racist because they don't want to talk about their own potential bigotry. That's racism. The law. I don't want to do that. Bigotry, outward behavioral, nonverbal, verbal expressions of anti-group feelings, stereotypes, group slurs, behavioral avoidance. Turns out that means anybody can be a bigot. Notice why people don't want to talk about bigotry. Because there are no innocent. So it's easy to talk about racism, but what about how you react to interracial couples? What about how you react to the idea of transgender people? What about how you react to the idea of Muslims? What about, there you go. There are no innocent. All those people are Americans. We don't want to talk about bigotry because we don't want to indict ourselves. We don't want to deal with ourselves. We want to just make it all big. Racism. Well, it ain't all big, folks, because we got rid of the laws. And we brought down HB 2 as well in North Carolina. Now it's interpersonal. Now it's personal. What are you prepared to do? And there is this problem of hibernating bigotry that confuses my students to no end. My students, because they're uneducated about the history of race in America, think that after Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech, everything was all right. No, they literally tell me that. That's what they were taught in high school. What? I say, you know they assassinated him, right? So it wasn't all right. I, after that, was in the Navy, race riots aboard ships carrying weapons of mass destruction. I, in 1969, graduated from a still segregated, by law, high school. So, no, it wasn't all right. But what we did change was the laws, because that was the point of the civil rights movement, to get us to equal protection under the law. It was not about the changing the hearts and minds of white people. I know Martin Luther King said that was part of what he was concerned about, but it wasn't the goal. The goal was equal protection under the law that makes it possible for me to stand here right now. Makes it possible for me to be at North Carolina State University and nobody can take me out of there because of the color of my skin. Equal protection under the law. Do I believe that every student who comes to my campus is comfortable with me walking in the room? No, I do not believe that. That would be foolish. Do I care? Not a bit. Why? Equal protection under the law. I couldn't give a shit. Yeah, but that means there's still stuff, right? Look, America is not a nation of bigots. We have changed. People's hearts and minds have changed. There's no doubt of that. Nonetheless, there's still stuff lingering. And with the right stimulus, there's stuff that wakes up that hibernating bigotry. That was one. We got a new one now. So it's very interesting, isn't it? Exactly. But that confuses my students because they think that all went away. And I talk about it in my book, Taking on Diversity, Hibernating Bigotry. That bigotry that is not expressed in behavior until the right stimulus wakes it up. And is it bigotry to let people use the language of hate while they're interacting with you? You're in an interaction. Is it bigotry? Yes. If you show tolerance for intolerance, yes, it is. And it's on you. So where do we go from here? What do we do in the presence of all that nasty behavior? To quote Miss Mann, that nasty behavior. Well, it's not just a joke. Let's get that through our heads. We can't let people get away with that. Oh, I'm just joking. Trying to think of his name, Dylan Ryder, the young man who walked into an African-American church in Charleston, South Carolina, and killed 9 black people who were doing Bible study. His friend said, well, he always talked like that, but we thought it was a joke. That's exactly what they said. We thought it was a joke. It is never, ever just a joke. Ever. The person is showing you something about their anti-group feelings. They're hiding behind the camouflage of joke. It's not a joke. And none of it's innocent. And if you let it pass in your community becomes a hostile environment for somebody, whether you know they're there or not. Whether you know they're there or not. So you have to let people know that you will not tolerate the disrespect of others. See, people can have an interracial, intergroup encounter without the presence of the stimulus of a black person, a gay person, because the topic makes it intergroup. Still talking about transgender people, and all kind of hostility comes up, but they're not even in the room. But it's still intergroup tension, intolerance, and disrespect. So, in our social interactions, we have to stand up for something. People say they want things to get better. Well, what are you prepared to do? Nothing gets better on its own. So, how do you deal with those nasty moments? Well, first off, don't argue. Telling people it's not true. Okay, they believe it already, so don't tell people what they have to do because they've already done what they're going to do. What you can do is say, okay, if we're going to continue to talk today, have an interaction today, this conversation, I can't be hearing that. This is a scientifically established strategy that works. A specific comment where you show your preference for what it takes to interact with you, what it takes for a good interaction in your community is this. I really don't like to hear such group negative stuff. I find it offensive. It hurts me, and then stop talking. I really don't like to hear people referred to as stereotypes. I find it offensive. It hurts me, and then stop talking. Don't argue. Don't argue. Make your statement, then stop talking. The person then has a choice to make. They may start arguing at you and just repeat it. And if they're still arguing at you, then say, I already told you. I'm out. Walk the hell away. My students like that quote because I do it all the time. Walk the hell away. Why not? This works. It also activates in the other person feelings of self-blame. They feel bad. And all you said was, I. Notice the I. You don't say you say I. Me. I really don't like to hear such group negative stuff. I find it offensive. It hurts me. That's all you're talking about yourself. And they feel self-blame. Oh, isn't that something? Yes. Why? Why do you think? Because they hurt you. They know it's wrong. Say it again. They're guilty. They also say that. They've misjudged you, haven't they? Oh, they made an assumption. They'll go along with this. Calling people retards and niggers and, it'll be fine. And then you say, oh, I'm so sorry. But I really don't like to hear such group negative stuff. I find it offensive. It hurts me. And they're like, oh, no. Oops, I missed. Yes, you did. That's the social interaction dynamic that we can all influence. All of us. A 10-year-old can do this if you teach them. And it matters. Because then you stop that stuff from growing in your environment, in your community. There you go. So how do you build an inclusive community? People are asking that all over America. Well, speak up against intolerance. Show respect for every member of your community. You don't have to know people to show them respect, And I'm not talking about that whole idea of being tolerant. Don't do that. Show respect. Walk past people and say, how you doing? Good to see you. Weather feels good, doesn't it? That's respectful. I get on the elevator. Okay, I do this with my students all the time. I get on the elevator, students are walking around like this. And I just walk over to them and go, hey, how's it going? They're like, oh. Yeah. But it's showing respect, interaction. Letting people know, yeah, you're here, I'm here, it's all good. Show respect. I talk about this in a lot of places, and I did it at our convocation, and a couple of things surprised me, a little caught me off guard, I guess. After the convocation, it's 5,000 students. I talk about all this in a very dramatic way, as Mark can tell you. He's seen the video. You're getting just a tiny taste of me here. And I talk about mental health conditions, all that stuff. At the end of the convocation, 5,000 students will leave the building, but they got this thing going on where they're going to take pictures. So I go out there because I've just given this talk. Maybe somebody wants to say something to me. And a few students come over and talk. They're all excited. What courses do you teach? La, la, la. So I'm sitting there. It's gotten kind of quiet now. I'm about to leave, and these two white males start walking towards me. And as they got up to me, I immediately knew they were on the autism spectrum. I immediately knew. Eye contact is a little off. Body language is a little different, that stuff. So I stood up. They put out their hands. They shook my hand. And they said, thank you. I said, what are you thanking me for? Thank you for what you said about us being here. And then they walked off. We take too much for granted about who's around us and who needs to feel included. We take too much for granted, and all it takes is a word. How you doing? Good to see you. That's all it takes. I left that moment the way I am now. And I'll calm down a little bit. Just feeling that. Because I constructed that lecture, that opening convocation speech, to activate in our students the idea that we're all in here together. I did not expect that moment to come directly at me, to me, but it did. And I'll never forget it. Speak up against intolerance and show respect. We can do this, and America needs it right now. We have to adapt to the future we're already living in. You're going to hand out my 9 tips how to help you interact well in neodiverse America. Look, it said in the beginning of the movie Crash, it's the sense of touch. Nobody touches. I think we miss that touch so much that we crash into each other just so we can feel something. Wow. We are social by design. By design. We are. We are social by design. And we have to understand that. All of us are social by design. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a cloud be washed away by the sea, Europe is the last, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manner of thy friends or of thine own were, any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, therefore never sin to know, for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. It tolls for all of us. We are social by design. So it's not just about race in the 21st century. Welcome to the future. It ain't coming. Here it is. We live in an age of intergroup tension. This neodiversity is what we're struggling with now. We all have to adapt to the future we're already living in. So one of my basic tips is never try to interact with a person as a representative of a group. What time is this over? Now? No. Okay. Okay. Never. Okay, good. I'm just checking. Never. Ooh. Good. Okay. I do also, if it's my room, troop the status schedule. Because then it's not my room. Basic tip, never try to interact with a person as a representative of a group. That's the first tip. Why do you think that is? Somebody who hasn't heard me today. Say again? We're all different. We're all different. Between and within group. There you go. Same color blood, but not the same histories. Never try to interact with a person as a representative of a group. Yes. Here's why. Because when you do that, you're going to mess up. So, before I found out I was gluten intolerant, which is a recent development, for 20 years I was a home brewer. Yeah, I don't drink beer anymore. But I would go to various places in Raleigh to see what new beers are being brewed and all that kind of stuff, and recipes, think about recipes, that kind of stuff. So people there in those places knew me, Village Draft House being one. I was in Village Draft House one evening sitting, and Village Draft House is only like 3 blocks from the campus, so they have a lot of transient hires. And that particular night, they were hiring training some new people to be work staff. And I saw them tap on a young white man and point to me. So he turned and looked at me, and I saw the anxiety just go boom, right in him. I was like, oh, That's kind of ugly. Okay. And then he starts walking towards me because he got to wait on me. That's the whole American thing. I got the money. I'm a customer. Okay. So he starts walking towards me, and the anxiety is just eating him up. He's doing this. Oh, yeah, it was bad. He's just twisting his hands. And he gets to me, and he leans forward, and he says, so how's it going, brother man? What? I love that reaction. People are like, oh! Is that a problem? What? What was he trying to do? Say it again. He was trying to connect to who? Bingo, to what he perceived to be. Because he damn sure wasn't trying to connect to me. Because nobody talks to me like that. Brother man. My brother doesn't talk to me like that. I haven't heard that since 1967. Brother man? What are you talking? But I'm a representative of something in his head. It's in his head. Never try to interact with a person as a representative of a group, because something like that is going to come flying out of your mouth. And then the other person is going to be like, what did you just say to me? But I was gentle. I try to be with young people. I just said, so here's what you're going to do for me. And as soon as I said that sentence, his face was like, ah, shit. Right, not the brother man you were expecting. Okay. And that's why Douglas Adams is so right in The Restaurant at the End of the Universe, where he says, there's a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear and become something even more bizarre and inexplicable. He goes on to say, there's another theory which states that this has already happened. Yes, that feeling of something even more bizarre and inexplicable that we all have every day of every week in this 21st century. Welcome to the 21st century. Welcome to the future. Something even more bizarre and inexplicable. Didn't see that coming, did you? But it's just the headline, right? Donald Trump elected president in shock to establishment. Okay, that rippled across our nation. You should have been on my campus that day. Whew. It's amazing. I had to help people, like, calm down, don't, ooh. Anyway, but here's the funny thing about that moment, what it can do to relationships, what it did to relationships. I found this cartoon. When I asked my students why interpersonal relationships were difficult to manage in the spring of 2017, somebody screamed out election. I was like, oh, okay. And then I found this cartoon. This may be the greatest first date ever. We have the same interests, hopes, goals, fears, desires, hobbies. We couldn't be more compatible. Yep, and it sounds like we both voted for this person for president. And we never spoke again. Yeah. That moment went from being just an interpersonal interaction to an interpersonal intergroup interaction. Welcome to the 21st century. It can happen like that. We now live in an age of interpersonal intergroup anxiety. We live in an age of neurodiversity anxiety. Who are the we and who among the they? Welcome to the 21st century. Something even more bizarre and inexplicable. A time of social uncertainty about how to interact, who am I interacting with? Even if they look just like you. Who are the we and who are among the they? I call this neurodiversity, social uncertainty, and anxiety a rough beast. Why? I draw on W.B. Yeats, who believed in millennial change, the poet W.B. Yeats, who believed in millennial change. He believed that some great change would come to humankind every 2,000 years. He did not know what it would look like in the year 2000, but in his poem, The Second Coming, he called it a rough beast. He put it this way: the darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle, and what rough beast! It's our come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. In answer to Yeats, I say that rough beast is neurodiversity. It has been born, and now it grows and grows and grows. What are you prepare to do. Thank you for your time. I need water. Thank you.
All right, so we have some time for comments, questions, discussions, concerns. We want to have an open dialogue. The whole reason for bringing Dr. Nacoste and doing our Respect campaign was to make it possible for us to talk about these difficult topics. Okay, so I want to invite you, if you have any comments, questions for Dr. Nacoste.
I'm here.
Raise your hands. We won't even make him stand up.
I was just wanting to get your opinions or ideas on the differences between classes, and I don't know how to say that without sounding elitist, but I will admit to a bigotry, probably in that area, or at least a prejudice. I find that I have a really diverse group of friends in all of the areas that you were talking about in terms of race and religion and sexual orientation and gender identity, but they are all college-educated professionals.
There we go. There we go. Well, it's really an amazing invisible segregation in America, because it is. It's here. And it can happen across all kind of group lines. My brother, Navy pilot, by the way, now a pilot for Federal Express, a multimillionaire, lives in a gated community that I can't get in without his permission, because the gatekeepers have guns. Okay. That's a money distinction, isn't it? That's all over America. What do you do about that? That's an invisible segregation that that some universities and colleges are trying to address by creating programs to bring students who grow up in high poverty areas to the campus. We're working on that. But this is a hard one. It's not intractable, but it's hard because we interact with people in our spheres. And in our spheres in America, there's a huge, invisible segregation by money. I have no other answer to that. It's there.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
I just wondered, do you believe the media propagates lies about race?
Yes. Okay. What the media relies on for everything is stereotypes. So who they pick to interview after some disaster. Commercials are filled with nothing but categories, stereotypes. But the reason for that is that's a marketing ploy, because it's easier for people to process that information that fits their stereotypes. That's what they do. So that certainly is creating problems, that always has. I think it's bigger now, because so many people are so tied into all kinds of media. But that stuff is filled with categorizations and stereotypes. You can call those lies if you like.
Yes.
Right here.
Somebody alluded to classes. Well, somehow that also has to do not just with money, but with education. Mm-hmm. So how do I interact with somebody who tells me that the Civil War was not about slavery?
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so here's the thing you have to understand about me. I'm a social psychologist, and that means I'm a social realist. You can't interact with everybody. That's the end of the sentence. You can state your position, they can state theirs, and you can realize they're not going to change. Okay then, see you later. You cannot, none of us can do that. I'm like, okay, fine, I'm not going to waste my energy on that. I'm not. If you have a real relationship, maybe you can have a real conversation, but you have to get to the point of having a real relationship, a real one. Not an acquaintance. A relationship that has a history is a real one. You've been doing it. Okay, there's a technical set of concepts around that. Frequency of impact, strength of impact, diversity of impact over long duration of time. See, that's a lecture. Sorry. And I have to help my students with that. Just because you meet somebody doesn't mean they're your friend. Okay. They go, really? Oh, yeah, really. And so you want to argue with people who you don't know. Stop it. One more question. I'm going to stop. Okay, 2 hands went up, so I'll take 2 more. But no, I'm going to stop because I'm tired.
What about dealing with people like that in your own family? My family all lives back in Oklahoma, and they're a bunch of racist, right-wing
Okay, stop.
bigots.
Okay, stop.
Especially my little sister's husband, and the guy's just, well, like my wife, she doesn't even want to be around him. To me, he's a tax I have to pay to see my sister. I mean, he uses the N-word. If you're in his, but you know, like we're back there visiting, you're in their house.
There's not a
I
damn
can't
thing you can do.
Yeah, what can I do?
You cannot do that. And look, okay, you can't change people. So when you're not there, what kind of conversations are they having? Exactly. So you're there just for a moment, and you think you're going to change that? All you can do is say what you're willing to hear. Then maybe you need to go sit on the porch. No, we have to be realistic about this. These people are having these conversations all the time, using that kind of language all the time. You show up for a weekend, and you're going to change that? I mean, it's hurtful. It's hurtful. But what I want you to be careful about is doing that. People like that. That categorization is going to get into your soul. Don't do that to yourself. These people, okay, I cannot interact with these members of my family. But don't start doing that people like that thing, because now you're heading down a path just to do Star Wars. You're headed to the dark side. Beware the dark side. There's another hand, and then I'm going to stop.
Just one comment. What he said has revolutionized the students I teach, and I stole this from him, that statement. That language offends me. It hurts me. I don't appreciate it.
Good. One more question.
And shut up. Right?
I got to quit. I'm dying here.
We're seeing a lot of, we see it on social media, but also in the classroom at every level. We see it in high schools and we see it in colleges as bullying on campus.
Oh, right.
Is that connected
Yes.
to that, neurodiversity / but if it's, girl or whatever it is, what?
It's some categorization they're doing, a neurodiversity categorization that they're doing to pick on someone. I talk about it in my book, actually, the bullying dynamic that's connected to neurodiversity. It can be, yes, it can be skin color, it can be gender identity, it can be sexual orientation, but it doesn't have to be. It's categorization of some sort, and it could be money. But it's all neurodiversity anxiety about how to interact and how to put people in their place. And that's all driven by this neurodiversity anxiety and anger. And once again, thank you for your time. I gotta stop.